Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for the resume interview workshop that is kindly hosted by Linus here for us from Adams and Martin. I'll do my self-introduction and allow Travis and Ashley do the introduction, and then I'll talk a little bit about who Linus is for all of us. So my name is Marty. I've been in-house counsel for about 6 years. Previously, I was a document review attorney for about 4 years, but that with Oric, but that one lasted for a while. Right now, I'm on the board for Java. I was also previously one of the co-chairs for YLG at Java, which Carrie here is the co-chair now. So if you all have any questions regarding resume interview or anything like that, mentorship, feel free to reach out to me. If I'm not the best fit for you, I can for sure ask someone else, right? Or think of someone else. So please use me as a resource. I'm here for you. Ashley, would you like to do a short intro?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Kwan. I just sent you an email, so if my name sounds familiar, that's why. I'm a family law attorney in Woodland Hills at the law firm Walser, Melcher, and Yoda. I just started practicing, so I'm in my first year still, and I'm also a member of YLG Java, the Young Lawyers Group. So feel free to ask me any questions about family law, being in law school, the bar, anything. Just shoot me an email.
Travis?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Travis Kaya. Today I'm APABA Los Angeles on my screen, but my name is Travis. I'm currently at my third firm, so I've lateraled twice. I started at a firm called Venable in Century City doing commercial real estate. More recently, I lateraled to another firm called Davis Wright Tremaine, where I worked on affordable housing finance, which is sort of like a flavor of real estate finance. And actually last week, I started a new firm called Richards, Watson, and Gershon. So it's a little bit of a pivot into public and municipal law, something I'd been interested in since law school, and decided I'd kind of leave big law and kind of take the leap and try this out. And it's been great so far. It's only week 2. But yeah, so if you have any interest in any of those areas of law, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm active with Java's Young Lawyers Group. I'm also the secretary for APABA, which is the Asian Pacific American Bar Association, which is sort of like the umbrella, so to speak, organization for all the different sister bars. And, really came up in law school through Java's Young Lawyers Group, as well as, APABA being a student rep, and built really meaningful connections through these bar associations. And I'm really excited to see so many young students and young faces here today getting involved so early. Because I think, that for me, it was a really meaningful part of my experience and continues to be that way to this day. So please feel free to reach out with any questions, and thanks for joining us.
And so I will quickly, one plug about YLG is the Young Lawyer Group is actually also free and open to law students. They do a lot of social events. It's a great way for you to network within your law student community, and also with younger attorneys who may know what TikTok is. So just kind of, it's a good way to network, and they have a lot of fun. So here I'm going to introduce you to our guest of honor, Linus Law. Linus has been a recruiter in the field for about 20 plus years. He is currently the branch manager at Adams and Martin down in Orange County. The office sits in Costa Mesa, but he works remotely because the company is just so amazing, provides everything. He doesn't need to leave his home anymore. But I I got to connect with Linus through a mutual friend of ours, PJ, who was also a recruiter at Adams Martin. And I really feel like the way that Adams and Martin and also Linus here, the way they do recruiting is by building a relationship. And soon you'll know, once you go into the real world, the relationship you have now in law school and also after law school is very important. I got my first in-house gig because of a friend I met in law school. And I had no idea that was going to happen. It just so happened. I wasn't looking, but he just kind of came to me. So that is something that I always keep in mind as well, should I pay it forward, right? So help each other out. The law school is just a phase. It's very cutthroat, yes, I understand, but in the future, we build each other up. So, but I'm gonna stop there and let the actual presentation start and talking about resume, the interview. But Linus, if I miss anything, please feel free to fill in the blanks.
Thanks, Marty. No, you covered it pretty darn well, and I thank you so much for the introduction. Hey guys, as a quick plug as well, I mean, the legal community, especially down here in Southern California, it's not the biggest community in the world. I mean, obviously, you guys know, being law students and seeing what's out there. That community in Los Angeles, that community in Orange County, that community in San Diego, it's a very tight knit. So it absolutely does make a difference to be part of good networking groups, get a chance to meet people face to face, because that referral sort of job finding and everything else, that is actually one of the probably best ways to find a new job. I mean, somebody who knows your personality, thinks you'd be a great fit somewhere, that's where you're going to really, I think, you can see some real results from that. So don't be afraid, especially being young, get out there. I mean, especially with pandemic sort of slowing down as well, those in-person mixers and happy hours and everything else, those are absolutely very valuable. So just a quick plug for that, make sure you jump in. I'm going to go ahead, guys, and just sort of share my screen. And guys, I like to make my kind of presentation, so to speak, really interactive. So please feel free to interrupt me, ask me questions along the way. I'm not one of those people who needs to go through. If there's something that really kind of strikes it, stop me and let's have a quick discussion, because I feel like most of us here will probably have some of the same questions that we have. So I'm going to go ahead. I think, Travis, can you enable the screen sharing?
Let me figure out how to do that.
Okay, because I just tried to hit the share screen and it just says that the host has disabled it. So I just need you to hit me with it if you can.
Let me figure out how to do this.
And if not, I can send you the updated presentation. If you want to go ahead and present, I can just talk through it as you scroll through.
Sure. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that I sent it to you earlier. I think we can use that same one that I hadn't made any edits to it. So the one that I sent you like a little bit ago will still work.
Actually, maybe if I make you a host, maybe let's try this.
Okay.
Did that work?
All right, let me give it a try. Here we go. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, guys, can you see the screen that I'm sharing right now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Let me go into presentation mode so I get the full screen. Okay, so I guess I'll hit admit. Okay, so this is the resume and interview tips workshop that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to go ahead and just start right here. 8 tips for creating a great resume. We try to keep it, short, so you guys can obviously, take these with you. And I will have handouts too if you guys want to download. I'll get those to you as well. But the easiest way, if you haven't done a resume in a while, if you maybe the last time you did a resume was, maybe back like, after, during college and you were looking for a job, like maybe during the summer or something. Great way to start from scratch. Create a great outline. Okay, you want to have a roadmap. You don't want to just kind of willy-nilly kind of put something together, but create a roadmap for yourself. And what this outline is going to have a summary of the skills, any professional experiences, especially if you guys are in law school right now. If you've done any internships, obviously kind of get those on paper. Again, don't get everything sort of in chronological order, but at least these are your ideas where you're going to start from, right? Think about any awards you might have gotten. Think about any references that you're going to have. References are going to be super important. I mean, people always want to find, kind of what your work ethic is like. People can be character references, so those are great to have. And certainly, it's a time to start thinking about reaching out to these people to say, hey, I'm starting to look for a job. Let them know that you're using them as a reference to expect phone calls and be able to share their phone number. Think about the type of job you're looking for. Obviously, as law students, I'm sure at this point you probably have some direction that you kind of want to go. And so think about, I want to be a big time litigator. Like Trav was saying, I want to get out of big law, be more in that public entity sector. Look at Marty going in-house, right? So there's, obviously different directions that people can think of. Think about where you want to go and where you want your career to start and where it's going to take you. Finally, select information that seems most relevant to include in your resume, right? Think about any kind of associations you've been in, anything you participated in, maybe like, some kind of speech and debate, right? Type of things. Those are all great things to add that maybe not necessarily on the, on a professional level, but obviously on an educational level to add in there. Okay, this part is the part that I always want to tell people that it's, in today's job market, it is really smart to be able to customize your resume. As you guys start looking at the opportunities that are out there, you want to have that opportunity to customize a resume for maybe each different employer, because every single one's going to be a, different opportunities, are going to present different challenges that they're going to want you to face. Job descriptions vary greatly. They emphasize different skills and experiences required for the position. Create several different versions that align with those differences. And then finally, save a copy of each version. Obviously, label each resume. You can utilize the employer's name potentially, obviously, as a reference point, so you can, keep those. And I always tell people, listen, we're in a digital age. Save everything. Don't, think I got to replace something. Whatever. Just save everything that you've got, and send those over, right? And keep those, knowing, so that if, hey, I was talking to an O'Melveny and Myers, I send my O'Melveny version of the, resume here, or I talk to the, Greenberg Gross, folks over here who do something a little bit different. I have my Greenberg Gross version. So those are all things to kind of keep in mind. Keep it organized, okay? It is tempting to kind of be different, so you feel like you stand out, or doing something differently with the organizational, setup of your resume. Keep it simple, guys. I'm here to tell you, I have been with Adams and Martin Group for a long time. I've been doing this legal recruiting for a long time. The attorneys, the firm administrators, the managing partners, the attorney recruiters, legal is a very old school industry. They don't necessarily embrace a ton of change. They don't necessarily embrace a ton of, uniqueness. They want to be able to look at a resume kind of almost in a very conventional format, because they're able to scan through that resume very quickly and be able to pinpoint the skills and the, work history that you have, very, very, very fast. As you can see here, employers quickly scan resumes for certain information that they're used to seeing facts and details organized in a certain way. Most employers, about 70%, tell Career Builder they spend less than 5 minutes reviewing your resume. About half spend less than 2. I will tell you, out of personal experience, from when I look at a resume as a recruiter, I literally have actually done this with my team because I wanted to see how true this was. I spend about 90 seconds on a resume. I see what I need to see in about 90 seconds. That's why you want to make sure it's organized simply with all the things you want to see at the top, okay? Most resumes are organized into 3 sections: your contact information, summary of qualifications, professional experience, education and affiliations, and finally your references. References don't have to be on the resume. Obviously, you can always put, can be supplied upon request. I always tell people to juggle how the organization is. If you are new to the market, don't have a ton of professional experience yet, put your education up top. I think the rule of thumb for me is, if you've got like, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years worth of experience, education on top is probably still going to be more valuable, showing off where, what school you've been to, maybe your class ranks, especially if you're ranked very highly. I think that as you've kind of developed your career and got like 3, 4, 5 years into it, then you can move that, education down to the bottom half and have that experience up top. And as I continue kind of go in reverse order, the content for information, guys, we live in a digital age again. You don't have to put addresses there. I don't want anybody here to think like people are going to get discriminated against because of you live far away. And I mean, again, not a real discrimination category, but say there are, things where people don't know what your situation is and think, oh, this person lives too far. I don't want someone to have to commute to my office. Let's make it irrelevant. All you need to have is contact information in terms of your name, an email address, and a phone number. So don't worry about putting in full address. That's a little bit old fashioned actually to do the address. Tell the truth, guys. There is, at the point in your career you have, there is absolutely no need to exaggerate, make anything up, embellish on anything you've done. Be factual. People want to see, what you've actually done. They want, and certainly you don't want to get into a situation where you go into a job where you're going to be overwhelmed because someone thinks that you can do more than you actually can. This one, I know that our marketing team kind of put this in there, but I actually think that if you have something that is relevant, to keep it in there, but it says don't add personal information that's not relevant to the job, such as hobbies or interests. Now, there are a few things that are out there that may actually start conversation, right? I know that for me, on a very personal level, okay, there were a couple people who were like Ironman triathletes, and that's something that I've always admired, right? Someone who's going to be able to put that kind of dedication, training to complete 140.6 miles in a day, swimming, biking, running. I always thought that was something that was really cool to kind of talk about. And it's always a good icebreaker. So if you've got something almost like that, that kind of, can say, hey, how do I relate this to the job? Well, you can talk about how disciplined I am. You can talk about, the fact that I've had to train X amount of hours a day plus work. So I've had to be very organized with my day and how I do things. That's where, that's something that can actually benefit you. So think about what you have in there and, and see if you want to add it. Finally, there's really no need to beef up resumes, right? 42% of employers told CareerBuilder they would consider a candidate who met only 3 out of 5 key qualifications for a specific role. I think that's even more true today than it was in the past. Like I was saying earlier, if you guys were catching our early conversation before we started the workshop, the market right now in legal, and I think everywhere, but in legal specifically, where I know, where I make my business every day, it is an incredibly hot market. And I know that, every law firm's got a laundry list of what they want in a candidate, but they also know, hey, this is the primary responsibility, the primary goal that we're trying to get. And if you're able to satisfy that primary goal of what that position needs to do, you're going to be in consideration because they, a lot of these firms desperately need people to join their firm and be, obviously part of that team, hopefully for the long term. 5, less is more. You're going up against a lot of other candidates. So keep your resume simple, right? Rule of thumb, limit your resume to 2 pages. I mean, 1 is always good. If you can, certainly, I think as you gain experience, you have maybe a couple pages in there. That's great. I've been in business for, doing my thing, like Marty said, for 20 something years. If I were to put together a resume today, mine would be not exceeding 2 pages. I have, I'm able to like condense it down. Obviously, people like to see those bullet points. The old school kind of writing a big paragraph. That's really kind of out of fashion right now. It's really to get those bullet points to highlight those accomplishments. And again, think of them as accomplishments, not tasks. That's what you want to focus in on. Measurable results and accomplishments. Action verbs: developed, implemented, consolidated. Right? Those are things that people like to see. Obviously, list your education and experience and associations that you have in there. And I think especially with you guys being obviously law students, what you can put out there that can help quote beef up your resume, because those are the real things that you have backing up your interest and your passion for this career. And then finally, I know it sounds really lame, but use a very basic 10 to 12 point font. There's no need to get fancy. I mean, an old school font like a Times New Roman, for example, not necessarily super fancy. That's fine. I happen to use a very basic Calibri font because, again, there's just not a lot of embellishment there. It's a really easy read, and actually when you use a certain font that way too, you actually get more room to type a little bit more, so you can have a little bit more spacing to add some things to keep your resume again in that 1 or 2 page realm. Guys, I cannot emphasize enough to do error checking on resumes. This is your singular document that represents you to the professional world, period. Nobody knows anything about you guys. Hiring managers don't know you from Adam. This is the biggest mistake that you can make, is to have grammatical spelling errors. So pay close attention to detail. Obviously, I know we're using Microsoft Word. You get a chance to like do some stuff of that, checking. So make sure you use that. Keep things very professional. Don't use I, me, or my. Everything is kind of always going to be third person. Again, fancy fonts are not welcome at all. Just keep it simple. Ask a friend, ask a family member, ask 2 to 3, even 4 people to look over the resume, because when you stare at it long enough, you see what you want to see. Other people can catch those mistakes. So if there's a weird, spacing or formatting error, they can come and fix that. If there's some kind of weird spelling error on a name of a firm, they will catch that. If there's a weird, again, comma that shouldn't belong somewhere, or you need that Oxford comma somewhere, again, someone's going to be able to notice that. So make sure this is, I think, hands down, the most important thing you can do is not have a perfectly error-free resume. So again, have a lot of eyes on it before you get it out there. Cover letters. Yes, at the stage of career that you're in, I think there's always going to be a need for a good cover letter. Even if it's not required, a good cover letter is going to help. always make it personal, right? Don't have a generalized cover letter. If you're applying to a certain firm, in that cover letter, you can talk about why that's in there. So you can utilize LinkedIn, you can utilize obviously the firm's website. If you have the name and title of the person you're talking to, that's where it's going to be, again, where that can be well used, and talk about how interested you are in that particular firm and why. Emphasize what you bring to the job, not what you take, right? Demonstrate what you know about the job and the company. Again, based on the research that you do. Focus on how you can meet their requirements rather than what you're looking for, right? So again, it's kind of you have to meet in the middle. You got to see what you bring to the table. Keep it brief. It doesn't have to be a long diatribe. A couple of paragraphs is great. And same thing again, proofread, proofread, proofread. Make sure you have everything set without any errors. Madison, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you for all your help. I was just wondering, when we want to tailor it to specific firms,
Yeah.
what are kind of some great examples of good tailoring versus bad tailoring? Because I know there's kind of a balance.
Good question. Good question. So here's what I would say. Like, and I'll try to use a very specific example. As a young attorney, right? And you're, I think you're probably somebody that's in school. You're not sure what you want to do. I think that, let's say you want to apply to a couple different firms. One of the firms, let's say, is a big time like litigation firm. They, these guys are involved with, complex business lit, multiple parties, multiple states, lots of federal court type of things. Then you're going to want to probably tailor your resume to some of the things that you've done as a student, right? That's very heavy litigation based, right? Because then they see that you have strong exposure and interest in doing litigation. What if another firm you're looking at, and it's something you're really, and let's take like Ashley's example, right? She's in family law. You're going to have a little bit of a different resume that reads more family law friendly than, let's say, a big complex business litigation base. Now they're both litigation, right, firms, and they're both practicing something in a similar way where civil court's still going to be involved, but you want to make sure that you customize it in that way, that say, hey, I was in this family law internship here or whatever. So that's what you want to like make sure you customize, make sure you emphasize those things, because then that shows that level of interest. Now, I'm not saying to not include it, but again, think about the order that you want to put things in. If you want that complex business lit piece to be standing out, put that near the top. If you want that family law stuff to be emphasized, you put that near the top and put the other stuff on the bottom, so people can see that you have a wide range of skills, but you prioritize how it goes. So again, that customization doesn't have to be, oh my god, I have to wholesale rewrite a new resume. It's really how you organize a resume and just kind of move some of your things around so that what are you trying to highlight. And think about that. If look at my example, if I'm an employer and I'm looking at your resume for 90 seconds, what do you want me to see in that 90 seconds? And that's what you want to put near the top, because obviously I'm going to go from the top down. Make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
You got it. Okay, cool. Any other questions right now? We'll keep going. All right, I'll keep going. Okay, finally, a good piece to ask is ask for feedback. Guys, this is probably the hardest piece, right? But if possible, get feedback from the employers that you interview with, right? Certainly the folks that I work with, my team at Adams and Martin Group, whether it be in LA, Orange County, San Diego, Northern California, again, any, where in the United States that we have, locations, we are happy to obviously get some hands-on advice and help with some of this stuff as well. I mean, this is, again, this is what I do every day. And, as you can imagine with what I do, I'm trying to get people set up for success in job interviews, because if you get hired, I get paid. So, it's not just me doing my service. This is why I work. So this is what we do. Any questions, guys, as we kind of do that whole resume, kind of like the tips? Okay, I'm going to keep moving on. So here's sort of like a sample cover letter, right, that you can put together, for a submission to a job. As you can see, again, you can take out your address if you don't need that. Put just your phone number and your email. But obviously, just like any other letter, dear so-and-so, if you kind of find that. And here is obviously just a couple of different short paragraphs. It doesn't have to be super long about what you need to write. I'll give you guys a second to kind of read through this. But again, what I do like to emphasize is that second paragraph, right? As a paralegal, I've had the opportunity to work under mentors who've instructed me in the complex protocols and procedures involved with court case filings. I've gained experience in scheduling, conducting interviews, and legal professionals. Obviously they're trying to tailor like what they're saying and what they have done experience-wise that can maybe contribute, right, to that firm, right? Because this is something that is going to be interesting for someone else to read. So you take a look at that. I'll go to the next page. And here's, again, I talk about the simplicity of what a resume should look like. I love, again, having someone who's got like a career objective in there. Again, that can be customized each time you apply to different firms, because you talk about, what, maybe that firm does. Obviously for someone like me who's been working for a long, long time, I would always start with my professional experience, obviously going in, reverse chronological order, obviously with my most recent job first, and then, moving down from there. But you said some summaries, a great way to, highlight some of your strengths. Again, the focus should be on your title in terms of where your, experience come from. Make sure the dates are always correct on that. Achievements and highlights, concise and measurable. Notice how each bullet point, has an action verb in there. That's definitely important to make sure you notice that. Responsibilities to accentuate your specific contributions to whatever, the job you were doing there. Again, if you have 5+ more of experience, start with your experience. Your company description's always, good, but again, keep it short because you're talking about you, not the company. And then note that all bullet points are like 1 sentence long and just, again, very rich and measurable, tangible numbers there. And then you can see education. You want to make sure you add your degree first, obviously your most recent. Year that you graduated. If you have any kind of GPA, especially if you're something proud of, add that in there, or obviously where your class rank is. If it's not the highest, don't include it. It's okay. You may get asked, but you have to put it out there. Just that's fine. And then of course any additional skills are great. And then again, keep everything under 2 pages. Cool. All right. Let's talk about the interview piece. Now, obviously, you've worked super hard, put together a great resume, spent hours and hours on it, had friends and families read it and critique it and change it so that somebody can look at it for 90 seconds, right? I mean, it's funny to say, but that's the reality of life. But the hiring managers, obviously, who are interviewing you, they're going to have this in front of them. They're not looking at it for 90 seconds. They're going to do a much deeper dive. So this is how we take all that work you did and translate into a really good interview. This trend, while the market is still super hot, especially for a high level position like an attorney, they are taking longer to fill, about 25 days on average to fill a vacant position, right? According to the University of Chicago. When you're talking about a high level player with a high salary, like you guys are all looking for, here's what the process looks like. Probably a quick screen with HR. If that screen goes well, you probably have a telephone interview with somebody who's going to be in play to help with that. Especially a big law, you're probably going to like someone in the first step of the hiring committee. Then you have a first live in-person interview. Maybe, it could be via Zoom, but I think a lot of people, at least in Southern California, seem like they're bringing people back live. Probably do a second interview, potentially even a third interview. So there is a lot of interviews going on, right? And you're probably going higher up the chain with each person that you're meeting. Okay. And then finally is going to be a job offer, follow-up. That first telephone interview determines if the applicant, like yourself, has the basic qualifications. Like I said, that's why typically HR will be that first interview. They want to make sure that they're given a job description, they are given some keywords from the hiring manager, and they will basically ask you if you know how to do these things. And be prepared to, again, probably a lot of yes or no questions, and hopefully a lot of what they'll ask you will be a lot of yeses and kind of give you some specific examples, right? Have your resume in front of you as you do this, because they might be referencing this stuff. Take a lot of notes. So obviously have some kind of pen and paper ready, to jot down any kind of questions or notes that they say. Guys, I know it sounds super basic on a phone interview, but if you are old school and have a landline, it is great to have something else. If you, like me, where I've actually shut down my landline, I use everything via cell. When I'm at home, I make sure that I'm hooked up to the Wi-Fi on my call so that I have no drops and the quality is clear. So I do that. Obviously, make sure you're clear the room, close the door, don't have pets with you, don't have TV, so on and so forth. Obviously, since you're on the phone, have a glass of water on the side handy in case you need to take a drink. And then finally, always send a thank you note. That's going to be the common theme that you'll see. Always send a clear response after everything's in, just a quick thank you, whether it be email, whether it be a quick, actual snail mail note. Okay. First interview, after you pass the kind of screening as well as the phone interview, you're going to have a one-on-one interview with the hiring manager. Second interview, typically an in-depth one-on-one interview with the hiring managers, and typically other managers will be involved. You might get some partners here, obviously maybe even some shareholders that could be part of this whole thing. So that's, get prepared for that. Third and final interview could be, again, some additional managers. You might be meeting with the managing partner of the firm. Especially if a firm is not super, big, they're going to, I'm sure that managing partner is going to want to make sure they hire somebody great for that team, potential coworkers and so forth. Finally, you're going to have the employer, is going to offer the job verbally. You might have to do some kind of a background check, which is very typical at law firms. They're going to talk about compensation, certainly any kind of counter offers that could be going are held. And obviously then at that point, you're going to have a nice, job offer letter that you can discuss with, yourself, your family, however you want to do this. And hopefully in this day and age, maybe multiple offers coming in as you're interviewing for multiple places. So some interviewing tips. Know your resume. Like I said, you guys worked really hard on it, but it's easy to sort of, again, get caught up in the action and activity within the interview itself. It's great to carry just a couple of copies with you so you can kind of reference it and kind of read through it as you're at an interview. That's okay to do. Decide, understand your strengths, provide examples that illustrate those strengths. Decide what accomplishments that you want to highlight ahead of time, right? Think about some of the things that you've contributed to, some of the work that you've done in maybe an internship or something that you've participated in. This is important. People who are hiring want to know what your short-term and long-term goals are. So put some thought into that. Again, don't necessarily have a canned answer, but think about what you might want to say early on, and as well as what you see yourself doing in 5 to 7 years, 10 years, whatever it may be. Know the employer, guys. This is super important to see how passionate you are about them. Research them. Research that industry, right? Do deep dive into the company's website. A lot of these firms are private. You're going to only be able to see certain things. If you happen to hit maybe like an in-house position like Marty has, you might be looking at a public company. It's always great to look at what kind of stuff that they release in terms of annual reports and so forth, so you can have an idea financially, right, of what a company's been doing. It's always good to know the company's competitors. I think that's something that you highlight, because again, that passion you have, you're going to know if a firm, who this firm maybe competes for business with. If you're talking about, let's say you're really interested in labor and employment, some of the big players out there are a Littler Mendelson, a Fisher Phillips, a Jackson Lewis, right? These are all national level firms, and to know a little bit about those guys, if you're going into, let's say, an interview with the Jackson Lewis, they're going to be impressed with you, knowing who else is out there and who they who they play with in their sandbox. Understand the company's organizational structure and where this position you're seeking fits into that structure, right? I mean, this is going to apply on certainly, I think, very applicable into large firms, where you're going to see, like, I'm sure Travis, working at a large firm, you can speak to that, knowing like, hey, if I'm working at this big firm, where does this go? What is my road to maybe becoming a partner? And if I become a non-equity partner, what's my road to becoming maybe a shareholder at some point? And so you got to know how that structure works, and it's okay to ask as well. You don't have to go in there knowing, but again, understanding how this firm structure is, and you can ask those questions during the interview. That just shows a lot of passion on your part. Certainly, practice, right? Answer typical interview questions. Talking to peers can help. Talking to people like Travis, talking to people like Marty, talking to Ashley, who have been going through this process. They're going to be a great resource for you on some of these questions, since they probably had to answer that themselves and can, kind of play that role of being the hiring manager. A lot of these questions they're going to be behavior-based interviews. Guys, think about what you've done. They're going to ask about past behavior. That's it's usually a good indicator of future behavior. So they're going to ask questions on what you've done in the past. When you're asking a behavior-based question, guys, tell a story. They're not looking for a yes or no answer. This is your chance to sort of really put yourself out there and really kind of show off a little bit. Again, being confident without being cocky, right? Analyze the skills and those that are sought by the employer to prepare, so you know how to answer those questions in the right way as well. I mean, obviously they're asking these questions for a reason. Have a good solid answer ready to, again, not a canned response, but again, a thoughtful answer. That's something you probably put some thought into prior. Here's some sample behaviorally based questions. Stuff like, what are the most important qualities you look for in a company, a position, or a manager? Talk to me about your short and long-term goals. Do you intrinsically trust people until they prove that you can't, or do people have to earn your trust, right? That kind of tells you kind of person you are, right? Tell me about a time you outperformed others at work and how you did it. Do you prefer to work from a plan, or are you one of those kind of free spirits, go with the flow, and why? Right? I mean, some people very much are like, hey, I'm got about that regimented play, and this is how I like to do things. Some people are like, hey, throw it at me. I'm ready for anything. Do you prefer a slow, medium, or fast-paced environment? Why? Guys, never say that you prefer a slow environment. Everybody needs people to be working fast these days. Do you usually make decisions based on facts or intuition? This is another important one too. So, people like to sometimes go with their gut, but some people like to research and, try to, see if they can find the right answer that way. So, again, think about who you are and how you want to answer this. Again, a lot of these don't have necessarily a right or wrong answer. Again, these are going to be on who you are. Would you rather be part of a group, or would you rather lead it? When is it acceptable not to follow up? I'm almost tempted to say this is a question that maybe has a wrong answer. I think if you always there's almost always have to follow up, right? On, almost everything. Provide an example of a time that you've had to deal with conflict or opposition. I use this question. I know this question gets used a lot because they want to know how people handle adversity. So this is something to definitely think about when you're answering that question. And again, a thoughtful answer is what people are looking for, right? Again, these are the questions that you're going to be asked, but I think it obviously shows a lot when you get a chance to ask a lot of questions as well. So when you're talking about, obviously getting your turn to ask a few questions, there's going to be some company focused questions. How would you describe the culture of your company? I think that's so important these days. Understanding, what the culture is like. You want to go into an environment that you're going to be, I think supported, that you're going to have a chance to strive. Please share what the company is doing to stay ahead of the competition. I think that's always a good one to hear. I mean, it's always keeping up with the Joneses. What are these guys doing? What was it about the company that made you want to work here? I love asking that one because people get very personal about how their experience is. Hey, I've been here for 10 years and I love working here, and here's why. Bing, 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 bing. And you're going to really get a good answer on what this company culture is and what they're doing to champion it because of how this person's been treated. Certainly, you can get a little more department focused. Where does this position fit into the organizational structure of the firm? What concerns this department what concerns is this department currently facing? What is the culture of the department? What are the types of personalities that work well within it? How would you describe your management style? These are all really good, valid questions to ask. And again, shows that your interest in the firm and what they're doing in the company. Quickly, guys, this is easy stuff, but interview etiquette. 10 to 15 minutes earlier. Guys, and don't come a lot earlier than that. 10 to 15 minutes is really the golden rule. You don't want to show up 30 minutes early, because then they feel like you're sitting there waiting for a long time. And if this hiring manager's got another meeting or something going on, that's not a great, they feel like that's not a great look. So they feel like they're rushing their meeting. So again, don't arrive more than 15 minutes early. 10 is really kind of the golden piece, golden rule. Guys, I know it's easy to say, but I cannot tell you how many times it's happened. Turn your cell phone off if you're going to bring it with you. I wouldn't say leave it in the car, because I know people don't like leave personal belongings in the car, and obviously with theft and everything else. But just make sure you silence it. But better to just even shut it off, because again, in that half an hour to an hour or 2 hours, you can get back to whatever you need to get to. Grab business cards when you're there in person. I mean, then you're going to have contact information to do those thank you notes and everything else. If you're going into that live and in-person interview, bring several copies of the resume. So in case other people need it, they can have it ready to roll. I always tell people, bring at least 3, probably more if if you're going to a bigger firm and interview more people. So you can have that people will have copies of it ready to roll. Certainly, obviously have maybe a list of questions you want to have pre-prepared. And then finally, guys, appropriate attire. Let's bear in mind, most legal entities, whether they be legal departments at in-house, like where Marty's working, or you're like Travis and Ashley working at a law firm, still probably a pretty conservative dress code there, right? Law is not somewhere for fashion. As a guy, I would be throwing on a straight up full on suit jacket, slacks, button down shirt and tie, and go very conservative how we look there. So that's it. Again, if you can, and sometimes this is a little trick when you arrive early, make sure to pronounce the interviewer's name correctly. If someone's got a unique name, when you check in and talk to the receptionist, just ask, say, hey, by the way, I'm here for an interview. I'm interviewing with someone. So can you tell me how to say this person's name properly? They'll, most people are going to be very helpful with that, right? when you're answering questions, again, provide a direct answer. Don't beat around the bush. Again, it doesn't have to be short. You do want to answer, obviously, with a thoughtful answer. I always like be thoughtful. That's another big word that I like to use is, don't knee jerk react just to say something. Give it some thought. Especially if a question is something that that's not necessarily something that you have an answer for. Give it some thought. That short pause, you always think it's longer than it is. Okay. Follow the interviewer's lead. If they are going to be more conversational, then you be conversational. If they're going to be more question and answer, then you be prepared for that question and answer style. So again, follow the interviewer's lead. Make it a priority to ask any questions you might have, right? Because you're there to interview them, not just them interviewing you. You're there to interview them as well. And lastly, guys, again, sit up straight, make eye contact. I know people are hopefully back, maybe shaking hands, have a good firm handshake if people want to do that, and so forth. Again, don't use slang. Don't use four-letter words, no matter how casual you think an interview gets. That's just the professional thing to do. And guys, never, ever, ever badmouth a former employee. They may ask what happened, everything else. Again, there is an art to being very diplomatic about how something may have ended, even if it was badly. And again, you want to make sure that you are diplomatic about that. You never know, again, with this community, how small, how large, what people's connections are. And sometimes if you badmouth, let's say, another firm that didn't treat you right, that could be maybe this guy's best friend works there. You never know what can happen. So again, don't badmouth those folks. Guys, this is one section I wanted to add in. Sometimes, especially, and I've seen this happen with a lot of high-level positions. There will be a panel interview sometimes. Obviously, very nerve-wracking because you could be sitting on one side of a table and have 3 to 5 other individuals on the opposite side just firing questions at you. Super intimidating, but don't be. They'll always tell you if it's going to be a panel. So find out who's going to be on the panel. Prepare questions that might be asked by these individuals. Prepare questions to ask each panel member. I mean, typically, if you're going to a law firm, everybody's got a bio, so you can research a little bit of that, so you can maybe tailor some questions to each different person. During that interview, introduce yourself to each person. Keep a list of the panel member names in front of you. So go ahead and again, take some notes, write them down, put them in the order. Hey, here's Travis, and here's Ashley, and here's Marty, right? And you have, so you can, again, have that ready to go. When you're answering the question, again, first address that person that asked you the question, but then obviously kind of do that whole, public speaking thing where you're going to be able to scan the room and, kind of talk to everybody, in the room. Make connections, put 2 and 2 together during these conversations so that you're actually listening, right? That, just stringing questions together and some of these things are coming together for them. And then when it's your turn to ask questions, relate them back to those interview questions that you maybe had, which is great. And then certainly send a thank you note to each panel member. That's always a great thing. Again, follow up is always great. Finally, when you get home, a little self-assessment isn't a bad thing. What would you have done differently? It's okay. I mean, listen, if you guys haven't done a lot of interviews, it's okay to be a little rusty the first time. It's about getting better, just like anything else you do. If it's riding a bike, if it's, working out. I mean, the first time you do it, it's going to be a struggle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So think about the things that you can do better. Was the position described? Was it what you envisioned? Hopefully it was, but sometimes it's going to be different. Sometimes that can throw you for a loop. They might go in a lot of different tangents and directions. So think about, were you able to kind of, was this person able to keep it on track? Did you have conversations that kind of push it off track? So think about that. Identify any concerns that you might have so you can address them should the interview process move on to the next level, right? So again, each time you can always have some new questions to ask, which is great. And then look at the current opportunities to others that you have on the horizon. Again, guys, I cannot stress enough, the market right now is really hot. I'm hoping that all of you, when you guys get to this level and in this phase, that you're going to have multiple things to choose from, and you're going to hopefully have a nice choice to choose the best one that's for you. And then, of course, follow up. Ask your contact or recruiter to supply any feedback, and send that follow-up note within a day. Don't wait a week. Don't wait, whatever. If the etiquette is really to, if you have an interview in the morning, hopefully you can get that interview note to them by that evening. If it's an evening interview, you can get it to them by the next morning. That's really the key, is trying to get that 24-hour feedback, or follow-up, I should say. Guys, I take a quick minute to talk about Adams and Martin Group, right? We're part of Roth Staffing Companies. Adams and Martin Group is one of the 5 specialized lines. We've obviously specialize in working with legal. We've been in business actually 27 years. It'll be 28 in August. We are the only staffing company ranked #1 on the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies. We are a very mission, vision, and values, purpose, and promise based company. We are very culture driven. It's one of the reasons why I love working here and doing what I do every day. We have won many awards with our ambassadors, the people that we put out to work, pulling us as the best place to work here at the United States. For Adams and Martin Group, again, specialize in legal staffing, attorney search, as well as litigation solutions, like a lot of doc review that Marty did in the past. We've got offices all across the country, as I mentioned. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for the time. Here's my contact information. I'll leave this screen up for just a second if you guys want to write this down. My email address, this is the line to my office. And I'd love to open it up now just for some question and answers if anyone has anything that they want to ask me. Anyone? Travis?
I have a question.
Here we go. Madison, here we go. I got you.
I had another question about, I know there's different levels of the interview process. So when
Yes.
it comes to the first one, the screening interview, how much will it be about our knowledge about the firm versus later on in the process?
Great question. Typical first screening, it's going to be a lot less about what you know about the firm. They're trying to determine if you have the skills needed for the job. So that first kind of screening interview that HR is going to give you will probably be typically very short. I usually tell people that first screening interviews is anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. It's not even a half an hour. It's going to be very, very quick. Now, hopefully you'll have a chance to ask them some questions so you can a little bit, but remember who you're talking to. Typically this long interview process will be with a larger firm potentially. And so you're talking to HR, they're going to only have limited knowledge of maybe what you need to ask. They can give you some general knowledge about the firm, but that's what they're going to really focus in on. But that first phone screen will be, like I said, 15, 20 minutes tops. That's usually rule of thumb that I've seen. Anybody else got some questions? Micah?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So our OCI is on Zoom. So do you have any Zoom specific or Zoom equivalent, basically? Do you have any Zoom specific interview tips?
Yes, I do. And I think a great question, Micah, especially with today's day and age. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Find a neutral background. Look at my background that I put in here. It's obviously got my branding. It's got our company in there because I'm sitting right now in my bedroom, right? I don't need you to see an unmade bed or a pile of laundry that's on my bed, right? I think having a blurred background, if you don't want to have a specific chosen background, is a great thing to have. Have that kind of big blur right there, right? In terms of dressing up, you are still expected to dress for a Zoom interview. So while I wouldn't necessarily think you'd have to put on a full jacket and shirt and tie, I think certainly having a button-down shirt and maybe a tie on is still appropriate, even for a Zoom. Even if you're rocking the basketball shorts down low, you can, you still want to look professional up top. So again, make sure that, you've got your, at least looking good from, shoulders up, right? But same thing, maintain eye contact, try to look into the camera. I know sometimes you're looking into the camera here, but the, content is here. So, try to keep that centered if you can. But again, same thing, right? Have your resume ready to go. If you have another screen with your resume or have it on paper next to you, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having that. And again, same thing, pen and paper is fine. I mean, I do that all the time where I'm sitting there and I'm jotting down notes, writing things down, and then going back and looking at the, camera again. So, those are the rules that I would like to, kind of say that some tips that
So
are
thank you.
etiquette.
One thing that I would add to that from my personal experience is, if you have a Zoom like this one, and it's going to be a one-on-one, make the interviewer screen smaller. You don't need to his, the whole screen doesn't need to be his face.
That's right.
So make
That's
it
right.
smaller, put it right under the camera. You'll be looking at him, but your eyesight is going to be a little bit different. Like right now, I'm looking at Linus, which is kind of in the middle. So hopefully it kind of creates a somewhat of an eye contact as opposed to looking right in the middle of the screen, and that looks just kind of off.
Right. Marty, great tip. I love hearing that because when you can resize those windows in Zoom, like you said, you can put that small little window of the interviewer right under the camera. Then you have the rest of the screen to have something else up. So again, if you, let's say you're pulling up something on the website or, you're looking at this guy's bio, that's all can be there and it still looks like you're right there. So that is one of the advantages of having like a Zoom interview like that too, is that you do have the entire internet right in front of you that you can access. So, you can kind of do a little cheating and look up some things and find some good questions to ask. That's there's nothing wrong with that. Believe me, that's actually, I think, a great strategy. Guys, any other questions?
I had a question about social media. What, if anything, should the interviewees be doing before going into these interviews as they kind of send their resume out into the world?
That's a really good, you know what, Travis, that's a really good one. That's a really good question. I think that basic rule of thumb, if you guys have LinkedIn, use it a lot. If you don't have it, get on it. It's free for all of us users, right? So, create that profile, make sure that profile matches up to what your resume says as well. It doesn't have to look exactly the same, but make sure the companies, firms, whatever it is, and dates are all the same. Okay. I'm going to go on a different tangent, Travis, when you mentioned that. So as a recruiter, I will tell you that I personally have accounts on Instagram, Facebook, whatever else there is. I know maybe not kosher to say I Facebook stalk people. If there's a candidate, now let me tell you why I do this. If I'm placing out an attorney, and I've placed out many, some of them are like obviously mid-career, so I'm talking about like some huge dollars and huge fees, like $200,000, $300,000 plus salaries, and I'm making big placements like that. I do look at people's Facebook profile. I do look at people's Instagram, because if I'm representing somebody who is making that kind of dollars, I want to make sure that I'm thoroughly checking whatever background I can on somebody and saying, hey, if I see a bunch of pictures of like, some guy with his family, great, it's innocuous, it's fine, it's stuff that stands out. If I see picture after picture after picture of somebody who's like partying all the time, whatever, that's, again, I don't know, I don't want to make a judgment, but I also am kind of wary too. And guys, I mean, I'm not going to dissuade anybody from doing this. It's your choice. But I also, one thing that was really big is especially let's say in this last election cycle, some people are very political. That stuff, if I can find it, believe me, anybody at the firm can look and find it too. And if somebody is a staunch Republican and you are super liberal, I don't want to say that may work against you, but that may work against you, right? And the opposite is true. And so, there's obviously that kind of cardinal kind of rule, right? Like, what do you not never discuss at work? Religion and politics, right? And so I kind of have that same rule for myself, again, in social media. I don't put a lot of, things where I'm talking about my personal feelings on politics. I don't put a lot of personal feelings on any religion that I have. If you look at my social media profile, like say outside of LinkedIn, you're going to see pictures of my kids. You're going to see me on vacation somewhere. It's not, I try to, some of those things, if I'm going to discuss, I discuss it inside with my family. So again, guys, don't think that that stuff is not being looked at, because it is. Especially in this day and age, how easy it is to get to those things. People are looking. So keep that in mind. Okay. Great question, Travis. And I tell you something, it's a very slippery slope, because I know that people's work lives and people's personal lives, they shouldn't necessarily intersect. And that's the old, kind of old fashioned way of thinking. But in this day and age, especially, look at all of us, we're on Zoom. We're all sitting at home. I'm working from my house. How can my personal life and my professional life not intersect? It's always going to intersect, period. So, that's the reality of, the kind of world we live in today.
And I think I want to offer one perspective, is because the majority of us here on the call are just starting out our career. So I think you just want to be a little bit more mindful of the stuff that is out there, that you're putting out there, because that is the perception of who you are to the professional community. But as you get a little bit older, have more experience, and you can be a little bit more choosy on who you work for, then yes, for sure, do what you want to do. Like, nobody's stopping you. And then you are able to, we can have a conversation when you do get that stage, is when you are actually interviewing them. They're not interviewing you because you have the skill set they want. So it's just about the timing and stage where you are now. You need to be a little bit more careful of what you do.
And guys, I'm not saying don't do it. And if you're passionate about that, do it. Just check your privacy settings as well. Just don't let anybody look at your profile. You can always change those privacy settings, so it's just your first degree friends or whatever it is who sees that stuff, and that's fine. I mean, again, you again can be in control of what you share. You don't have to share. It doesn't mean you can't share everything. You can, if that's who you are, great, do it. but just be, again, you can be mindful. You have those privacy settings set up so that, not some random HR person at whatever firm or company you're looking at can't just look you up and see, all those pictures that you may not necessarily want them to see. You can just set those privacy settings and you're fine.
Or you can be like Kevin Durant and have a burner phone or burner account. Anyways. I know we're getting to the top of the hour. Does anyone have any specific questions? If you have any, OCI lined up, and you have any concerns, here's your chance to ask Linus. But while you're thinking about the last question, I want to remind everyone that for those who signed up with Travis through the Google Form survey that we put out for mock interview, supposedly you receive an email from Ashley today that you paired up with a volunteer attorney to do that. Please take the initiative of reaching out to their attorney and introduce yourself. You don't need to include me, Travis, or Ashley on the email, but reach out, schedule a time, be courteous, and just have a conversation and be prepared. Even though it's a mock interview, be prepared. Take everything that Linus talked about today to heart, especially on your resume, because you share your resume to the interviewer ahead of time. Allow them at least 24 hours to review it, because you don't know when they're going to be available. So they can have a more mindful and more thoughtful interaction with you. And yeah, we actually, Travis, myself, and Ashley are very excited to do this this year, and we'll hope to continue to do it every year at least, to offer it to everyone. So at whatever stage you are at in the future, we hope to do this again. And yeah, so if you have any question regarding the process and everything, please let us know. Anything you want to add to that, Travis?
Sure. Yeah. So we set up the program to be really flexible. So we want to make sure you as the interviewees are getting as much out of this as you can, and really tailor it to whatever your interview needs are going to be, right? So if you're going to be doing OCI, try to sort of create a mock interview that would mimic whatever your setup is going to be. And make it clear to the attorney that's interviewing you that this is what I'm doing, and this is what I would like your help with. And then feel free to reach out and ask for resume critique and all of that as well. And then and maybe Linus can confirm whether this is true or not. But I get the sense that maybe 5 years ago when I was doing OCI, it was a little bit more structured, where you had firms that you basically only went through kind of the traditional OCI lane. It seems like now firms, because of the competition for talent, are kind of going early and earlier in the process and kind of grabbing people up, in June. So I get the sense that networking now is kind of really important, and more so than it's kind of the traditional OCI model. So I might suggest trying to use the networks, including Java and APABA, to get a jump on some of these interviews.
Travis, just to address that, you're absolutely right. Talent right now is premium, right? Much like the housing market, there's a lot more people looking to buy than there are houses to buy. There are a lot more people looking to hire than there are people to hire. So you guys are in a very unique position right now where you do have a little more leverage, I think, than maybe folks in the past. But what Travis said is absolutely hits the nail on the head. I think there was a traditional kind of a route that people were going, and I think those dates have now been kind of thrown out the window. Things are happening a little bit earlier and earlier, so people can get that talent secured. So that's really a big piece. And again, same thing. What we said earlier, that networking piece is going to be so important. I mean, that's where a lot of these firms, are going to make a lot of contacts. Obviously meet you on a personal level, and it's certainly a great way to go. And certainly, again, being young, a lot of these events are fun. They make them fun, right? You're going to a happy hour. You're going to a a sushi making thing. You're going to a wine tasting. Some kind of a thing. They're trying to attract you to go. And they're trying to make this thing fun. It's not a hey, suit up and go and go to a job fair. It's a let's be a little more casual and have some fun doing this.
And one last thing, I guess, if no one have any questions, is I would implore everyone here to go schedule multiple of informational interviews within your network. If you think that the Java board have a lot of different experience and background and practice areas, go to our Java website and just kind of start emailing people saying that, hey, I was a part of this thing that YLG put together. I would love to get your take on this and this practice area. Would you mind speaking with me for 15 minutes? Things like that, right? So I think those are very helpful. And again, I know we're already out of time. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us for follow-ups. We'll be more than willing to share our experience with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to put a quick plug in. So Java's Young Lawyers group is a group, and Carrie is one of our co-chairs, comprised of a lot of law students and attorneys within their first, I think, 5 to 10 years of practice. So it was a great resource for me coming up and continues to be that way. And all of us are kind of looking to pay it forward when it comes to law students who are kind of going through the same things we were going through. Of course, we didn't have to go to Zoom school during the pandemic, but but you can tell us about that experience. And then APABA also has a bunch of student events. Caitlin Tyra is our incoming student rep. So please reach out to any of us or to Caitlin if you want to get involved with APABA. And then Java's annual gala, where we kind of have an installation dinner for the entire membership, as well as judges and all kinds of people that you'd want to meet, is coming up July 15th. And we're always looking for student volunteers. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to any of us and we can kind of get you set up.
Any last words, anyone? Thank you so much, Linus, for your time today. We really appreciate you and the experience that you've shared.
Marty, thank you for having me be part of this, guys. And if you reach out to Marty or Travis or Ashley, if you guys need my contact information again, please feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions you might have as well, kind of moving forward. So, love to see all of you, obviously find some great success in this legal career you guys are pursuing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linus.
Thank you.